The latest round of Iran-US talks in Geneva on Tuesday may never have happened without quiet but intense pressure from across the Middle East. From Riyadh to Ankara, from Doha to Muscat, regional powers moved with unusual urgency to prevent a confrontation that could spiral into full-scale war. Their push was not driven by idealism or abstract calls for peace. It was driven by survival. A war between Iran and the United States would not remain contained. It would ripple outward across borders, oil fields, shipping lanes, and fragile economies. For governments in the region, the calculation is simple. A controlled crisis can be managed, a war cannot. Countries including Turkey, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt stepped into active diplomatic roles, urging restraint, facilitating back channels, and warning Washington that escalation would carry consequences far beyond Tehran. Iran, in turn, has used those fears strategically, signaling that any U.S. strike could ignite a broader regional conflict, drawing its neighbors into the fallout and effectively turning them into reluctant intermediaries. Oman has been the most visible mediator, hosting talks and serving as a trusted conduit between both sides. Muscat has repeatedly warned that Gulf maritime security and global energy flows hang in the balance. Qatar walks a delicate line. It hosts Al Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. military facility in the region, while maintaining functional ties with Tehran. For Doha, war would be catastrophic, threatening its gas exports and economic stability. Saudi Arabia, once locked in open confrontation with Iran, now takes a more cautious approach. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has emphasized de-escalation, wary that another regional war could derail the kingdom's economic transformation and once again expose critical oil infrastructure. Egypt fears disruption to the Suez Canal and Red Sea shipping, arteries vital to its fragile economy. And Turkey, sharing a border and deep trade ties with Iran, faces its own risks. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has warned that strikes would neither topple Iran's leadership nor solve the nuclear issue, but would instead trigger refugee flows and border instability. Yet beneath their mediation lies a stark reality. These nations depend on U.S. security guarantees, even as they remain within range of Iran's missiles and drones. They oppose war. They are working to prevent it. But quietly, they are preparing for the day diplomacy fails. Because in this region, geography ensures that no one stays untouched.
The world is watching the Strait of Hormuz. And tonight, it's not just diplomacy unfolding in Geneva, it's missiles. As nuclear talks between the United States and Iran begin, Iranian media announces something explosive. Live missiles fired toward the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow artery through which roughly 20% of the world's oil flows. This is no coincidence. This is choreography. On one side of the table, negotiators. On the other, warships, bombers, and ballistic missiles. The second round of nuclear talks is underway in Geneva. Indirect negotiations, careful wording, diplomatic language. But thousands of miles away in the Persian Gulf, Iran's paramilitary forces are staging large-scale maritime drills. Missiles launched from inside Iran and along its coastline, purportedly striking targets in the strait. The message? Iran is not negotiating from a position of weakness. It is negotiating with muscle flexed. Iran insists the talks will focus solely on its nuclear program, not on domestic unrest, not on sanctions rhetoric, not on internal crackdowns. And its top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, says he has arrived with real ideas for a fair deal. But he also draws a red line. Submission before threats is not on the table. Meanwhile, Washington is turning up the pressure. U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly warned that if Iran refuses to constrain its nuclear ambitions, force remains an option. He has reminded Tehran of what American bombers can do, and he has already moved hardware into place. The USS Gerald F. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, has been sent to the Middle East. It joins the USS Abraham Lincoln and guided missile destroyers already operating in the region. Fighter jets, interceptors, missile defense systems. This is not subtle diplomacy. This is deterrence by deployment. Iran, however, is not blinking. Its Revolutionary Guard has begun drills across the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and the Gulf of Oman. Live fire exercises, radio warnings to passing vessels, a signal to global shipping that the waters are no longer calm. The strait is the ultimate pressure point. Choke it, even temporarily, and oil markets shudder, energy prices spike, global economies feel the tremor. Tehran knows this, and it is reminding the world. This standoff comes as Washington signals a broader strategic shift, sharpening focus on homeland defense and long-term rivalry with China. That recalibration has raised questions about how much bandwidth America is willing to devote to another Middle East escalation. But Trump's message has been unmistakable. He prefers a deal, but he is prepared for consequences. "I think they want to make a deal," he said. "I don't think they want the consequences of not making a deal." Yet Iran's tone suggests something else: defiance, confidence, a calculation that America, stretched across multiple global flashpoints, may not want another full-scale confrontation. Behind the scenes, envoys move quietly, SUVs with tinted windows, palace venues, carefully timed arrivals and exits. Even the structure of the talks is indirect. No dramatic handshake, no joint podium, just intermediaries carrying messages between rooms. But outside those rooms, the military chessboard is fully visible. Iran had been enriching uranium to levels just short of weapons-grade purity before previous hostilities disrupted negotiations. Its nuclear program remains at the center of Western concern. Iran says it does not seek nuclear weapons. Washington says it cannot risk taking Iran at its word. And now both sides are testing how far the other is willing to go. Gulf Arab nations are watching nervously. They warn that any miscalculation, any strike, any interception gone wrong could spiral into a broader regional war. The Middle East is still reeling from the devastating Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. Another ignition point could drag in multiple actors, from proxy militias to state militaries. One drone shot down, one missile misread, one vessel seized, and the spiral begins. Yet Iran appears determined to show that pressure will be met with pressure. Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Ravanchi says the ball is in America's court. Tehran wants sanctions relief. It wants economic breathing room. It wants recognition of its right to civilian nuclear development. But it will not fold under threats. At least, that is the posture. At the same time, Trump's administration frames the buildup as necessary leverage, strength before compromise. The logic? Negotiate from dominance, not from doubt. The result? A high-stakes game of brinkmanship played across oceans and conference tables simultaneously. Geneva hosts the words, the Strait hosts the weapons, and the clock is ticking. Oil tankers continue to pass through the narrow channel, watched by radar, tracked by satellites, shadowed by warships. Markets fluctuate, allies whisper, adversaries calculate. Iran is signaling it is not isolated. The United States is signaling it is not intimidated. Both sides insist they prefer a deal, but both are preparing for what happens if talks collapse. This is not just about centrifuges or enrichment levels. It is about credibility, about deterrence, about who blinks first. And tonight, as missiles arc over strategic waters and diplomats shuttle between rooms in Geneva, one thing is clear. Iran is not stepping back quietly, and the United States is not stepping away. Two powers, one narrow waterway, and a world holding its breath.